You know this picture. You've known it your whole life. A wooden stable on a freezing night, snow on the roof. A young mother turned away at a locked door, sent out back with the animals. 3 kings on camels, an ox, a donkey, a single star hanging over a barn. It's beautiful. And almost none of it is in the Bible. Not the stable, not the snow, not the 3 kings, not even the innkeeper who said no, because there is no innkeeper. Nobody says no. The whole scene comes apart on one Greek word, one word Luke wrote that your English Bible quietly changed, kataluma. Here's what I want to do in the next 20 minutes. I want to take that Christmas card apart, piece by piece, the date, the innkeeper, the stable, the kings, and show you what the text actually says. And I promise you this, when the decorations come off, the manger doesn't get emptier, it gets warmer. Stay to the end, and I'll show you the one other place this same word turns up, kataluma. It's the last night of Jesus' life, not the first. Let's start with the easy one, the snow. Open your Bible to Luke chapter 2 and read the birth as slowly as you like. You will not find a date, no December, no 25th, no winter at all. The text simply doesn't say when. What it does say is this: there were shepherds staying out in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. That's Luke, and it's a real detail. For centuries, people have argued that shepherds in the open fields point away from deep winter, that you'd bring the flocks in when it turned cold. And I want to be honest with you, because this channel is built on being honest with the text. That argument is softer than people make it sound. Shepherds near Bethlehem could be in the fields in the colder months too. So the fields don't prove it wasn't winter. They just remind us of something we forgot. The Bible never told us the season in the first place. We filled it in. So where did the 25th come from? Not from Matthew, not from Luke. It was chosen later by the church, a few hundred years down the road, and scholars still debate exactly why. Some say it was set against a Roman festival of the sun near the winter solstice, the light of the world answering the shortest, darkest day of the year. Others point to an older calculation. An early belief tied Jesus' death to the 25th of March, then reasoned that his life must have begun on that same date, the conception, and simply counted forward 9 months. 9 months from late March lands you almost to the day on the 25th of December. Both explanations are defensible. Neither one is written anywhere in Scripture. I'll be straight with you. For a long time, this bothered me. It felt like finding out the date on a birthday card was made up. But sit with it, and something shifts. The date was never the point. The early church wasn't trying to record the weather. They were making a statement that into the darkest stretch of the year, light was born. That's not a lie the card tells. That's a meaning we chose. Keep that in your pocket. We're going to need it. Because the snow isn't the biggest thing the card got wrong. The next piece invented an entire character, a man the Bible never wrote. And most of us have quietly blamed him our whole lives. Picture the story the way you were taught it. Mary is in labor. Joseph is knocking on doors. And an innkeeper, tired, maybe cruel, cracks the door, looks at this desperate couple, and says the hardest word in Christmas: no, no room, out back with you. I pictured him for years, the quiet villain of the whole night. Then I went looking for him in Luke, line by line, word by word. He isn't there. There is no innkeeper in the gospel. There is no knocking on doors. There is no scene at a door at all. Luke gives you one short reason the baby ended up in a manger, and it hangs on a single word. In English, your Bible probably says, because there was no room for them in the inn. The Greek word there is kataluma, and here's the thing. Luke knew the ordinary word for a commercial inn, a roadside place with a keeper, where a traveler pays for a bed. That word is pandocheion. He uses it in another story you know well, the Good Samaritan, who carries the wounded man to an inn and pays the innkeeper. Different word, a real inn, a real innkeeper. Luke had that word available. He didn't use it for Bethlehem, he used kataluma. And kataluma doesn't mean a paid inn, it means a guest room, the spare room in a family home. In fact, Luke uses that exact same word one more time in his gospel for the upper room where Jesus eats the Last Supper. A guest room, in a house. So read the sentence again with the real word in it. There was no room for them in the guest room. Not the inn turned them away. The guest room was full. Now put yourself back in that week. Rome has ordered a census. Everyone with roots in Bethlehem has traveled back to Bethlehem. The whole extended family, all at once, converging on the town of David. Joseph is coming home to his own people, and the guest room of the family house, the one nice spare room, is already packed with relatives who got there first. So what does a Middle Eastern family do with a pregnant relative when the guest room is full? They don't send her to a barn. That would be unthinkable. A shame on the whole household. They bring her into the main room, the family space, where everyone is, where it's warm. Do you feel what just happened to the story? We were told Mary was rejected, shut out, alone in the cold, with a man who didn't care. And the text, the actual text, says almost the opposite. She wasn't turned away, she was taken in. The door in this story doesn't close, it opens. I have to be fair here, because I told you I would be. The fuller picture, the exact layout of that house, leans on the work of scholars who've studied village life in the Middle East, and some of the finer details are still debated. But the language itself isn't the debated part. Kataluma is not pandocheion. There is no innkeeper on the page. That much is simply what Luke wrote. Which leaves us with a strange new question. If there was no inn, and no innkeeper, and no rejection, then where did the stable come from? Where did the barn come from at all? The barn comes from the manger. It's a reasonable guess, honestly. Luke says Mary laid the baby in a manger, and in our world, a manger means a barn. Animals, straw, a building set apart from the house. So we built the barn to hold the manger. But the manger is the one prop the text actually gives us. The Greek is phatnē, a feeding trough, a place where animals eat. Here's what most of us never learned. In an ordinary Judean village home in the 1st century, the animals didn't live in a separate barn out back. At night, the family's few animals, a couple of them, not a whole farm, were brought inside, into a lower section of the same one-room house. The family lived and slept on a raised platform, a step up. The animals stayed on the lower level, and cut into the floor, right at the edge between the two, were feeding troughs, mangers, built into the house. So a manger doesn't pull the baby out of the house and into a barn. A manger puts him right in the middle of the home. Think about what a feeding trough actually is when there's no crib in the room. It's the nearest thing to a cradle a poor family has. A small, solid, hollowed-out place, exactly the right size, right there, on the floor, where everyone can reach him. Mary didn't lay her son in a barn because nobody wanted them. She laid him in the manger because that's where the warmest, safest little bed in a crowded house happened to be. And the ox and the donkey, the two animals every nativity set gives you, open Matthew, open Luke, they aren't there. Neither gospel mentions a single specific animal at the birth, not one. So where did they come from? Most likely from a line in the prophet Isaiah. The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib. It's a verse about a people who've forgotten God, and the animals who haven't. Somewhere along the centuries, Christians read that ox and that donkey back into the manger scene, because it fits so beautifully. Even the beasts came to know their Lord. It's a lovely piece of poetry, and it caught something true, creation bowing to its maker. It's just not a report of what actually stood in the room that night. Luke never counts the animals, because Luke never mentions them at all. Notice the pattern building here. Every single thing we've stripped away. The snow, the cruel innkeeper, the lonely barn, the animals. Every one of them made the scene colder and lonelier than the text does. We keep peeling off decorations, and the room keeps getting warmer. Hold on to that. because now we come to the grandest decoration of all, the kings. We three kings of Orient are. You can probably hear the carol in your head right now. 3 kings, 3 crowns, 3 camels, following the star to the manger. Go to Matthew chapter 2, the only gospel that tells this part at all, and count the kings. You can't. There are none. The word Matthew uses is magoi, magi. It's where we get our word magician, but that's misleading too. These weren't stage performers. They were something like scholars of the stars from the east, men who read the sky, probably from the direction of Persia or Babylon. Wise men, if you like, but not kings. Matthew never once calls them kings. They wear no crowns in the text. They rule nothing. And here's the detail that undoes the carol completely. Matthew never tells us how many there were. Not 3, not any number at all. The text just says, magoi, plural. Could have been 2, could have been a dozen. We landed on 3 for one simple reason. There are 3 gifts, gold, frankincense, myrrh. 3 presents, so we imagine 3 givers, 1 to carry each. That's it. That's the whole basis for 3. So where did kings come from, if not from Matthew? From the same place the ox and donkey came from, the Old Testament, read forward into the scene. There are old lines about kings bringing gifts, nations coming to the light, gold and incense arriving from distant lands. Beautiful prophetic images. Over time, the church heard those royal echoes in Matthew's star readers, and the magi slowly put on crowns. The names you might know, Casper, Melchior, Balthazar, those don't show up until many centuries later. Medieval tradition gave them names, faces, ages, even a home country each. The Bible gave them none of it. And look closer at those 3 gifts, because they carry more than we usually notice. Gold, the gift you bring a king. Frankincense, an incense burned in worship, the gift you bring to God. And myrrh. Myrrh is the strange one. Myrrh was a burial spice, used to anoint a body for the grave. Stop and feel the weight of that for a second. Into a nursery, someone laid down a gift meant for a funeral. Matthew doesn't explain it. He just sets it there, at the very beginning of the story, quietly pointing all the way to the end of it. The shadow of the cross, resting in the straw beside the manger. Whoever these star readers were, they brought gifts that told the truth about who this child would be. King, God, and one day, a body to be buried and raised. I want to be careful here, the way I've tried to be all along. None of this makes the Magi less real or less important. Matthew clearly means for them to matter enormously. Foreigners, outsiders, following a light all the way to a Jewish child. That's the miracle he's pointing at. We just dressed them in costumes they never wore. And now the last thread. Because it turns out these men weren't even standing where the card puts them. They weren't at the manger that night at all. Look at your nativity set one more time. The shepherds are kneeling on one side, the wise men are kneeling on the other. Everybody's crowded around the same manger, the same night, under the same star. Now read Matthew carefully. When the Magi finally arrive, where do they go? Matthew says they came into the house. The Greek word is oikia, a house, not a manger, not a stable, a house. And they see the child with Mary, his mother. Matthew uses a word that can mean a young child, not only a newborn. Then comes the detail that sets the timeline. When Herod realizes the Magi have slipped away without reporting back, he orders the killing of the baby boys of Bethlehem, and Matthew tells us the age he chose, 2 years old and under. Herod picked that number based on exactly when the wise men first told him the star had appeared, which means the star may have risen as much as 2 years before the Magi ever reached Bethlehem. Do you see what the card did? It took 2 events, a birth and a visit that may have come as much as 2 years later, and pressed them flat into one crowded night. The shepherds really were there the night he was born. Luke tells us that. The Magi came later, to a house, to a child, following a star that had been climbing the sky for who knows how long. 2 scenes, maybe 2 years apart, folded into a single image on a single card. So let's do the thing this whole video has been building toward. Let's strip the card down to what Luke and Matthew actually wrote and see what's left standing. No snow. The text never named the season. No cruel innkeeper. He was never on the page. No rejection at the door. The family took them in. No lonely barn. A home with a feeding trough built into the floor. No crowd of kings that night. Just a young mother, a borrowed corner of a relative's house, and a baby laid where the warmth was. Strip away everything we added, and the scene doesn't get poorer. It gets closer. Closer to a family. Closer to a home. Closer to us. I promised you at the start I'd bring you back to that one word, kataluma. Here it is, one more time. The only other place in Luke's whole gospel it appears. It's the last week of Jesus' life. He sends 2 disciples ahead into the city to prepare the Passover meal, and he tells them, "You'll be shown a large upper room, furnished and ready. Go there." The word Luke uses for that upper room, the guest room where Jesus will eat his final meal, wash his friends' feet, and break the bread, is kataluma. The same word, a borrowed guest room at the beginning, a borrowed guest room at the end. He enters the world in someone else's spare room, and he says goodbye to it in someone else's spare room. Luke bookends the whole life with the same quiet word, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And here's what the card cost us. For centuries we told the story with a slam door at the front of it, a world that had no room for him, a baby pushed out to the edges, alone in the cold, before he could even open his eyes. It's a powerful image. It's also a lonelier one than the text ever gave us. Because Luke didn't write rejection. Luke wrote a full house, a family making space, a guest room already crowded with people who came home for the same reason Joseph did. The real Christmas isn't a story about a world slamming its door. It's a story about God being born into the middle of an ordinary, overflowing, imperfect home, the warmest, most crowded room in the house. And I know some of you are watching this in December feeling like the one standing outside the door. Maybe the house is loud with everyone else's family, and there's no obvious place for you at the table. Maybe it's the first Christmas since you lost someone, and the empty chair is louder than the carols. Maybe you're the one who quietly feels like there was no room kept for you. If that's you, I want you to hear what the word actually says. The story you were handed, the shut door, the cold night, the baby with nowhere to go, that was never the real one. The real one is a family pulling a stranger's daughter in out of the dark and making room where there wasn't any. That's not a story about being left outside. It's a story about being taken in. If you grew up picturing that closed door, the one that said no room, the one that made the whole night feel cold, I really want to hear this from you. What does it change to learn that door was never there? Tell me in the comments. Even one line. I read them. Every one. And this is my favorite part of making these. I'm not here to take your Christmas card away. I love it too. There's nothing wrong with the snow, or the carols, or the little wooden stable on the mantle. They carry real love, generations of it. But underneath the card, there's something steadier. Not a myth we have to protect, but a text we get to return to. And the text is warmer than the card. A mother taken in, not shut out. A baby in the safest corner of a home, not exiled to a barn. A word, kataluma, that ties the first night to the last and tells you the whole time that God was never on the outside of the house looking in. If this is the kind of study that means something to you, slow, honest, taking the text one buried word at a time, subscribing genuinely helps it reach the next person who needs to hear the door was open. You're the reason this channel exists. Thank you for that. There's one word in this story I didn't get to tonight. The name the angel gives the child, and what it actually means in Hebrew. That's the next study, and I think it changes the meaning of the whole birth. I'll see you there.